August 2nd, 2022, 822022. That's a lot of twos.
A lot of twos.
And we're here at the House of Prayer, Plattsburgh House of Prayer on Broad Street in Plattsburgh. And we're talking to the supervisor of the town of Plattsburgh, but we're out of your jurisdiction, sir. This is not part of your jurisdiction.
It's not nowadays, but if you were to think about it, it was the town of Plattsburgh at one point.
In 1814?
Yeah, back in the day. So it's like we're jumping into a time machine, right?
All right. Well, we were in the city of Plattsburgh, and the town supervisor is here to talk about something that's happening in and around the town of Plattsburgh. What are you going to talk about tonight without giving away your whole spiel here tonight?
Sure. So I'm going to be talking about the Battlefield Memorial Gateway project. This is a project between the town of Plattsburgh and the American Legion. In the shortest form, it's a veterans park, but it's so much more than that. It's a gateway into our region's history, and really excited to talk a little bit about kind of where we've come from, where we are, and where we're going in the future.
Okay, I know when I first started talking to you folks, when you were getting to the beginning of this, you were clearing out some land across the tracks and near Wirery, just to have a point of reference. I think McSweeney's is in that area, Clarence Carl's.
And a good point of reference nowadays, it is across from Clarence Carl's, but if you see where the new Michigan sign is that was installed by the Pomeroy Foundation, that's actually even a better sense of kind of what side it is. It's off of Sunset Drive all the way down towards the end. Yeah.
So is that where the park is going to be? I know it's a gateway to the Crab Island and so on.
It is. So the land parcel that it marks the gateway, the park itself, is within that area. Yeah.
Okay. And you got to cross some railroad tracks to get there, though. Is that any concern there? Because
I'm gonna cover a whole bunch of that tonight,
Okay.
but there's two pieces that make up this property. There's the property before the train tracks, and then there's the waterfront property that's also part of it. So, yep.
Okay. So will there be boats going? Are you going to cover this going to
Yeah,
Crab Island?
yeah.
and so
I'm
on?
gonna cover kind of probably more the global-ness of things. So I want to kind of tie your viewers in to maybe watch the whole presentation instead of getting the full cliff notes.
Right.
But the objective in short though is that this project has multiple stages. Really what we're hoping to do is to really develop a beautiful premier space, and then as time goes by that we will build upon it, and there will be other amenities and services that really kind of activate the space. Yep.
So you'll be explaining the significance of
Absolutely.
that little island there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Anything else that I should ask you before we get the show on the road, or about holding up this audience here by 3 minutes already?
No, I think that's the highlights for now.
All
right, cool.
Thank you, Michael.
Michael Cashman, Town Supervisor for Plattsburgh. I'm Carol Arnold. I serve on the board of Clinton County Historical Museum, and
Louder.
and this is Jerry Favreau.
I couldn't hear you.
I'm Carol Arnold, and it's my privilege tonight to introduce Michael Cashman. He is quite well known around the town of Plattsburgh, and I'm proud to say I know him. He takes my calls when I call the town of Plattsburgh and ask for him. If he's in the office, he takes my calls and responds. And I'm so pleased that he's here tonight to talk to us about the Battlefield Gateway project. Michael is originally from Massachusetts, but now calls Plattsburgh home. He landed at SUNY Plattsburgh for college and hasn't left. And he's very happy to be here in this area. He's very accomplished. He has great credentials. He has great awards. And one of the latest and most impressive is that the governor has named him to the SUNY Plattsburgh College Council. Very impressive. Some of the adjectives that I would use to describe Michael are servant leader, leadership, and collaborator. And one of the things, well, you probably all also know him as Mr. Michigan. He's put Plattsburgh on the map as the Michigan capital of the world. But the thing that I am most pleased about Michael Cashman is that he's a collaborator. Michael doesn't draw lines in the sand around town of Plattsburgh, city of Plattsburgh. Just today, I heard him say that 2023, there will be some new twists to the Michigan Day, Michigan Month, Michigan Festival, and we might even get some other restaurants to put their twist on the Michigan. And it just rolls off his tongue. It could be Satadi, it could be Alekas. And if you know, one of those is in the town of Plattsburgh and one is in the city of Plattsburgh. And to Michael, it really doesn't make any difference. So, Michael Cashman.
Thank you very much. I'll do without the microphone. If you need it a little bit louder, just give me a thumbs up, and it'll make me feel good to get some thumbs up, and then I'll also try to be a little bit louder. Thank you for that very warm and very kind introduction. I want to just expand upon that a little bit for you to understand where some of my passion comes from as it relates to Plattsburgh itself. Plattsburgh has afforded me many, many things beyond just public service. I met my wife while attending orientation, and we got married on the stairs of Hawkins Hall. And the reason I bring that up is the city of Plattsburgh is very important to me too. And it's about how we wed ourselves to relationships past, present, and the future. The Battlefield Memorial Gateway has a very similar aspect, and that's about relationship. So I want to share with you a relationship that was established nearly on day one of me becoming Plattsburgh Town Supervisor. Some of you may know John Rock, the Commodore. John shows up on my doorstep and he says, both with a question and a statement and the way that he emphasizes it, "Do you know about Crab Island?" And my response was, "Well, yes, John." And we begin to have this just wonderful conversation and his dreams and wishes and all the work that he's done, and many of the American Legionnaire folks, particularly from post 1619, and refurbishing this beautiful flagpole. And the next slide that I was going to show you was this mini highlight that New York State Now did on the work that John and his team have done over the last couple of years, and how it became kind of a point of inspiration for the work that we're doing today. Let me see if I can get this to work. A little bit. So, as John and I were having these conversations, it was about a dream for an opportunity to find a way to talk about Crab Island and the uniqueness of how there were American and British soldiers from the period of basically the Battle of Plattsburgh that were buried side by side in unmarked graves. And John had shared that there was a flag that was on this island a number of years ago that was in desperate need of refurbishment, and he and a band of merry men basically took on this task, and they were able to achieve it. But still to this day, that story about Crab Island has not kind of penetrated the larger public locally or around the state or even the country. And it truly is an amazing story. Not the story about the flagpole, but these individuals that were buried there. And annually, the group continues to have a memorial ceremony on September 11th. Now, most of us now, think of September 11th in the modern way of thinking, but those individuals engaged in great battle to their demise and are now laying there side by side. And the American Legionnaire members go out on boats and lay wreaths and tribute and volley their rifles in honor of these individuals in a moment of silence. And as we began to have conversations, though, I said to John, this is all very inspiring. And I could feel the hair on the back of my neck starting to come up, right? The way that John spoke about it, it just got to you both in your heart, and you could feel it kind of hardening your spine and being proud to want to tell this critical and important American story. So I said to John, I've only been in office now about 3 or 4 days. Can you give me a year just to get my feet beneath me? And he goes, yeah, I can give you a year. Well, a year goes by to basically the hour of the original conversation, and John is back in my office. And he says, what are we doing? And, we had some more delightful conversations, and we began to brainstorm. And what I was able to share with John was that the town of Plattsburgh recognized a piece of property that was really valuable to our ability to capture the energy and the mission and hope of this.
What's going forward?
Okay. All right. So here we go. So now, imagine this is John and I having this conversation, and I'm sharing with him that the town of Plattsburgh has a master plan for a number of properties in the town, and that we have this local waterfront revitalization plan, and that the town owns a piece of property, and that in its most recent recognition in 2016, and it's been recognized in other plans in the past, that there's this piece of property that could be activated in such a way that we could begin to tap into what John was speaking of. Now, I want to put some things into perspective and get you to become oriented to some of these things that we're going to talk about. Here, my good friends, the Clinton County Historical Association, and then the Battlefield Memorial Gateway Project is within, about a stone and a roll away from one another. And there are multiple points of connection that we will talk about. The other part to it, though, is if you look at this map, it puts it in a larger context of the importance of why we are starting to call this a gateway rather than just a park, okay? And the property that we speak about is approximately here, okay? And that property represents the current, the present. Directly across from the property is Crab Island, which represents the Battle of Plattsburgh era, okay? And then the tip of Valcour Island, the island is actually split between the town of Plattsburgh and Peru in its designation, but the tip of Valcour Island is in the town, and stitching back to that property that's on the land side of it, we're calling that the Triangle of History. And what that represents is this concept of, through the passage of time from the American Revolution to the Battle of Plattsburgh to modern day, because the property that we own used to be the old Plattsburgh Air Force Base. So it kind of represents that through all these generations that there have been these men and women in service to our nation that have either fought in this, here in these battlefields of Lake Champlain, or they have left and contributed to the great American story from our region. Okay, so this goes to the next one. There we go. So the conversations continue, and in 2017, on the beautiful bluff of Clinton Community College, where you can see this gorgeous vista of Lake Champlain, we made a very important announcement that codified a memorandum of understanding between the town of Plattsburgh and the Clinton County American Legion group. All posts, not just 1619, not just post 20, but the collection of posts that make up Clinton County. And we dedicated ourselves to the Battlefield Memorial Gateway Project. And you can see the symbolism that we've been using here, and I'll share just a little bit of it there, is the very top part of it is the point of merger of past and present. Again, the land parcel that we're talking about. Stitching down to the two other corners by dates representing the eras near the Battle of Plattsburgh and the American Revolution. We also wanted people to know that this was about our call of let freedom ring, from our shore to everywhere that folks would leave our great area to in service of freedom. And then capturing between the two is the town of Plattsburgh, the Clinton County American Legion, and then there's some other symbolism in there between the flags and the eagle and some stuff like that. But the BMG project was born in that action. So then, in 2018, in conversations with the American Legion, they sponsored the initial concept for what this property would look like, what the functionalities of the property would be, and we started really the act of brainstorming. I mean, truly, it was we got a number of folks from the town and the Legion and community members, and I know the Clinton County Historical Association had been involved in a number of these, and this was kind of the dream. And you'll see here the property outlining a multi-generational space that would honor veterans but activate history in such a way that people would also happen upon this because they wanted to recreate, or they wanted to take advantage of some art, or they wanted the opportunity to engage Lake Champlain more from a maritime perspective, etc. So the town of Plattsburgh, we have 60 plus years of planning, and I would say it's one of our strongest legacies. A great example of the type of work that we're trying to do. Who here has been to Lapeer Lane, Riverway? Has anyone been to that little park in Morrisonville? Strongly encourage you to go check it out, okay? You can find it on Google. You can find it on the town of Plattsburgh's website. It's a wonderful little parklet, okay, or spur or node off the Saranac River Trail off the Master Connector. And it's a multi-generational space that really plays to the natural environment. It's something where grandparents and grandkids alike can enjoy. There's some recreation part of it. There's some ecology elements of it. So this was one of the other waterfront revitalization project properties that we identified in that plan that I shared with John early on, okay? So the process by which what we're doing is going to be very similar to what we did for this property. And the reason I tell you this is when people say, well, where's the project now? And you know, are you really going to be able to do this? We've done it. This is on a much smaller scale. We fully recognize that. But we're using the same planning process. We're using the same attitude, and we're using the same expertise to make sure that we do it, and we do it right to the level of what it needs to be. So then, in 2018, Assemblyman Jones really assisted us by setting the foundation, a strong foundation. You know, think of it this way. If you're going to build a house, what do you need? You need a strong foundation, right? You don't build the roof first, okay? You don't build the porch. You need to have a strong foundation. And Assemblyman Jones was able to help us secure $250,000 to begin the important and critical things that allow us to start one of the chapters to blueprint the property out, okay? And we're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like as well. Following this, the town of Plattsburgh applied for a $20,000 American Battlefield Protection Grant. Okay, this is federal, so we were able to secure approximately $20,000, and this really was about looking at the property from a perspective of how do we make sure that we nurture things in a respectful manner, that we can begin to identify how we're going to tell the story, how we're going to activate the space in these critical pockets that we know that will make this space premier and special. So it's going to have a focus of honor. It's going to have a focus on maritime life and military history and reclamation. So we really wanted to take our time. Now, $20,000 to me, okay, is a lot of money. $20,000 though in planning sometimes really isn't a lot of money. So we put out basically an RFP, RFQ, looking for respondents. And we had this company that responded, Object Idea, and they have a team of people, and some of those individuals that were on that team had experience working with the National Purple Heart Museum. Okay? So we're talking with people that have a level of expertise that we knew that we needed. Interestingly enough, the town of Plattsburgh is the first Purple Heart town in the North Country, okay? Because we believe that the town's portfolio is not a feather in the cap, but it's something that we feel very passionate about, that we want to find as many ways that we can to tell stories, to recognize and honor those that have contributed to our community, our society, our nation, and the Purple Heart designation was critical. Many of you know of the Hometown Hero banners. So one of the things that we did that's slightly different, if you look at the banners at the town of Plattsburgh, if we have a veteran that is a Purple Heart recipient, they have the medallion that is also shown on their banner. So that's how we've been trying to incorporate the Purple Heart. We also have some special parking spaces at Town Hall and some of the veteran institutions around town. So we then begin to advance this even further, okay? We're now taking those concepts that I just talked about and envisioning what does it mean to honor, right? What does the military history portion of it, what does maritime, for example, and I'm bouncing around here a little bit on purpose because depending on where you're looking to engage this property, it may be very easy to say, oh, I want to go to the waterfront. I know what Lake Champlain is. I have concepts of what maritime life is like, right? But as you go through the property, we want to pick people, we want to pull people into the story along the way from different points of access. We want it to be multidimensional, okay? We don't want people just to come down and say, oh, isn't this a beautiful place by the lake? Isn't this beautiful? Let me take an Instagram photo, right? Whatever it is, we want people to really feel it. So we began to look at the layout. And in this version, you'll notice the playground is in such a point, the gateway point, the idea is that the events of these battles are at Lake Champlain, right? We're not going to turn back, right? We're going to look at the waterfront. All small things, I know it may seem like, but the orientation of things began to help us understand other necessary items, and we'll talk about that. So then we begin to get into the real fun stuff, right? What does it look like? Okay, what is the texture? What is the vibe? What is the orientation of things? So we then start looking at other parks, other spaces around the state, around the Northeast, around the country, to start saying, what can this space be? What should this space be? Okay? And I mean, you can see there will be a space in this property when it's fully developed that's going to be play, recreation, okay, to get kids involved. So we looked at slides and we looked at benches and we looked at various things. And then when we talk about, you know, the gateway, you know, do we do stone? Do we do metal? Do we do, you know, the maritime? You know, how do we activate the space when you get closer to Lake Champlain? So really begin to have a lot of these good conversations. And that then prompted us to the next item. Now you're going to say, wow, you're studying a lot. We are studying a lot because we're being very mindful, purposeful, driven with passion, but also acknowledging that for this to be done right, we have to make sure that we take our time to understand the weight of which you know, we are trying to present back to our community. And it is a small space too, okay? We're not talking about hundreds and hundreds of acres of property either. We have a limited amount of space that we're working with. So here, we received some additional funding through a CFA grant, Consolidated Funding Application, for those of you that don't know what that is. Competitive through the state. Another example of the state investing money, so $250. Billy Jones helped secure us some funding for this, okay? State starting to recognize, hey, you know, there's something here. Let's see what's going on. Now, this is where it really starts to come together, okay? And I want to help you folks become really oriented to this space here. One of the first questions, Calvin asked it to me earlier, is, ain't there some train tracks? Yep, there's some train tracks. But the property, okay, is divided by the train tracks, which is in some ways very beneficial because this project is going to be developed in phases. The meat and potatoes, I'm Irish, the meat and potatoes is in the northern part of this property, okay? And you'll see when we get into it further the types of stuff that we're going to develop on that part of the property. But as your kind words said about my interests and our interests, not just mine, but the towns, the American Legion, and the folks that are part of this project, we wanted to find opportunities for linkage, for collaboration, connection. We abut the city of Plattsburgh. This project will connect to the Terry Gordon bike path. On our side, it won't be the Terry Gordon bike path, but it will connect to it though. So, remember that map that I showed you that had the icon for the Clinton County Historical Association? Imagine you come to this space and then you walk over to the Historical Association, or you bike over there, okay? Points of access, points of connectivity. Or maybe they start over at the museum and they want to walk over to where we're at. Maybe they want to walk to the historical oval. Maybe they want to walk to the, you know, the old base campus. You know, there's lots of stuff on both sides. The other part to it is the Empire State Trail is something that the state has developed over the last several years. It basically starts in New York City, goes all the way up to Canada. And there's been a lot of attention given to that. This property is on that trail, so it will stitch people into that opportunity to explore, okay? It's not always about creating something new, it's about finding opportunities to link things in such a way that people can happen upon it, okay? Now, one of the goofiest things that has ever occurred, in my opinion, is the name of the road is right here. It's called Sunset Drive. Just happens that it doesn't face the sunset. So one of the things that we will be doing in the very near future as part of our phases is we'll be renaming that, something that's appropriate to the project, okay? Now, as we go down further, you will see there are train tracks. We are engaged in the process with New York State DOT and the railroad to increase safety opportunities to get across the railroad. But we have access right now, okay? Because the property that we own, is on both sides of the lake, okay? People already go down there, we know that, okay? So it's about increasing safety, it's about maximizing the opportunity in such a way that makes sense with good planning with emphasis on safety, okay? So then, after all that work and all that planning, we start to become a little bit more hyper-focused on what can it really be. And I'll give you an example. In the previous maps, there was this kind of ship down here, this observation desk, this educational center of sorts, and it was down the southern part of the property. And because we had time and we focused on planning, we thought to ourselves, well, now we know what the real true topography of the property is. Why would we put it on the lowest portion of the property? Let's bring it right up front. So when you get on that property, that you can truly gain some of the best views of Lake Champlain from that perspective, okay? So we started to reorient some of the amenities and the things that we wanted to achieve in this property. That play area you'll see down here, fun little thing about that, I know it's a little hard to see there, but this right here looks like a little ship that kids can kind of play on, some play equipment. And then this little green item will be designed to look something like Valcour Island. And then there'll be another little one for Crab Island. The idea is that when they're in this little footprint, it's like they're experiencing history, but they're giants, right? So that they can start to fill their interest and their cup of imagination with the stories and wanting to learn a little bit more. This portion over here will connect again to that bike path, but we decided to put it on the choir side of the park, and that's where the honor portion will be, okay? We'll have some monuments and some items that really recognize the contributions of the men and women, all right? It also is important to note, we're not looking to recreate things, okay? We're not looking to recreate what's at the Oval, for example. We're not looking to recreate what's at Fort Todd. We're not looking to recreate what's in Beekmantown, et cetera, et cetera. What we're trying to do is to build a space that will give people a unique perspective, advantage point, and opportunity to experience the environment, okay, on multiple levels, that they will be inspired to explore more. Gateway, right? It's the gateway. This is kind of the threshold, you know, in that gateway, multiple points of access. And also the jetties inspired us as gateway because it's the gateway into Lake Champlain, okay? So kind of the threshold, the gateway. And then you'll notice up here, the Remembrance Plaza. It will have great views of both Crab Island and of Valcour Island. And this is where we will anchor some things for the particular military units. And we also imagine this being a great space for classes to go, okay? Imagine teachers being able to bring classes there and have enough space where people can kind of gather and, you know, maybe do a quick classroom unit and then walk around the property. So again, that it's not all play, it's not all just book education. We want them to have some experienced education, okay? And then down here, again, a beautiful opportunity to connect with Lake Champlain itself. American Revolution, the Battle of Plattsburgh, but Lake Champlain continues to contribute to our economy and to our identity, okay? So one of the jetties, we're considering keeping it natural, okay? and really playing to, the ecology of its relationship with the lake and so on and so forth. People go down there and fish. Off to the other section, maybe be able to have people put in some kayaks, or maybe they're out on Lake Champlain already and they want to pull in their kayak. The long-term goal, the long-term wish, right, both a goal and a wish, is to be able to install something where some boats can get in and out of the jetties to more easily get over to Crab Island and to get over to Valcourt. And you'll remember how I talked about on September 11th, the American Legion is doing that now, okay? So we would like to be able to have those folks be able to leave this property and go right over to Crab Island, for example. There are possible opportunities in the future to have docents and all kinds of different things. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. We really want to be realistic about this. We want to set it up to be very special. Small can be special, and I compare it to an engagement ring, right? It can be very small, but has lots of very sentimental value. An heirloom that maybe gets passed down generation to generation may seem small. Some of them may seem humble and maybe don't have the most shine that others. I guarantee that this space will be very special and hold a lot of significance and value. And it will, going back to what I said before, freedom ring. It's kind of our ring to our community. So let me go a little bit further in this. All right. Some other, just advantage points. Again, you can see kind of the topography, right? You can kind of see the sweeping landscape kind of rolling down a little bit more. It gives you that sense. You understand now why we did that educational deck kind of up above, right? It gives you a much more better advantage point. Some of the other key features that you'll see too is we want to do this kind of natural amphitheater for a couple of different reasons. One is that it could be a space for maybe the reenactors for the Battle of Plattsburgh. It could be something that tethers into other events and ceremonies for various groups. You'll see that kind of honor plaza, and then you'll also see a little bit better the play area. See the boat a little bit better there, and kind of you can get that sense of the islands and things like that. So again, multi-generational. And we also are going to do, some window treatment. This was, very high concept art. This is probably the gateway to the gateway was probably the one thing that we didn't put as much attention to, but we wanted it as a placeholder to be able to understand that we will have something that delineates that this is the entrance point. But these give you a better sense. People will be able to walk around. It will be accessible. All right. And then, one of our thoughts is, to have some bathrooms there. So something modest where, people can come and enjoy, whether it be individually or whether it be as a group, etc. Now, I want to draw your attention to one of the other logos that we've adopted fairly recently. We really like symbolism and we like telling stories. Has anyone ever seen an American flag folded when it's presented? You'll see the flag kind of folded and being ready to be presented. There's stars for each of the branches. Even Space Force now is represented there because we wanted to make sure that it was being inclusive. BMG, we know that a lot of people will truncate this, and we're trying to meet people at all generations, okay? The emoji, okay, whatever it is, people tend to shorten things up. So we wanted to put that out there right up front. It's okay to call it BMG, okay? Let's own that ourselves, but also we want to softly remind people of the Battlefield Memorial, not that it's absent, but more emphasis on the gateway, because so much of this area was part of those battles, okay? You'll notice the line below looks like water, okay? It's our connection to Lake Champlain. Now, a lot of you may look at that and say, the eagle. Looks like the eagle in the city of Plattsburgh. Could be. But the real story to this particular eagle holds something really special. When I had the opportunity to talk with John Brock, multiple times he said when they were on Crab Island, as they hoisted the flag up and they volleyed the guns and they took that moment of silence to honor those that are no longer with us, that gave the ultimate, sacrifice. There are eagles on Crab Island. And an eagle circled the island. And it was this sense of the spirit carries beyond any land that can be imagined here. It flies across all bodies of water, all layers of land, and that our country has been on the backs of so many people. So lots and lots and lots of layers of symbolism, and these are the stories that we look forward to telling people through our social media presence, through websites, and the property, and there'll be other things as well, okay? Now, this is the most exciting part, more currently. Last December, we again applied for competitive funding, and we are receiving $900,000 from New York State. Competitive through the North Country Regional Economic Development Council, that CFA process. The reason I bring this to your attention is mentally start adding up some of the money that we have received. This is a real project, folks. This is moving forward. There are a lot of haters out there and naysayers out there. I've heard them. I've talked to them. This project is happening, but we are doing this with purpose, and we are taking our time to get it done right. Okay? New York State and others, okay, for this particular project and the way that we go about going after these grants are very meticulous in their expectations. They don't just write a check and say, oh, go have fun. Tell us how it worked out, okay? So we have been building upon the momentum of these last, several years, and we have made great gains moving forward. And we continue to engage the public. Again, I want to thank all the members of CCHA for being so supportive in how we've moved this forward. Many times they've been at the table and will again. So we're receiving more money. The total project, when it comes to completion, is approximately $6 million. Now, I say that number and sometimes people go, $6 million? Well, we've probably got about $1.2 million in it already with the 900, the 250 with, Billy, some other grants and stuff like that. So, okay. But the other part to it is I'm going to get to a part of this project where there's going to be a lot of in-kind opportunities. There's going to be a lot of sweat equity opportunities. There's going to be a lot of local businesses that are going to be able to provide certain skills and labor to help us actually build the physical structures, okay? So we're using that as kind of our sense of, how do we manage a project, okay? It's not $6 million always in, hard cash, dollar for dollar, but it gives you a sense of what you need to do, okay? So we are on the countdown. We've actively been pursuing this. We've actively been working on it. The town of Plattsburgh has been at the very forefront of celebrating and bringing this to light, that we have an expectation that the site will be activated, not fully completed, we recognize that, but fully activated for the 250th anniversary of our nation, which is in 2026, okay? The reason that we wanted to set that as a goal was that it is our opportunity to tether it to some grants. Okay, that's one part of it. The other part to it is that's our story. the American Revolution. That is part of our story. It is a critical component to it, okay? So we're really excited by the progress that we've made. To give you a quick update as far as, when are shovels going in the ground and things like that. We are cautiously optimistic. I will put the asterisk on this statement because it's critical to know supply chain management right now is just crazy. There are a lot of products and services that are just at all-time cost right now. So because we're being very purposeful in the way that we do things and the way that we spend our money, we may see some activity this October, okay, doing some site work that will really set us up to do some really good stuff in the spring again too. And that's how we've always worked. We've done some kind of site plan stuff in the fall, kind of put us into a position for the spring. If that doesn't happen, I do not believe that we will lose a lot of ground though. We'll make it up. There's a lot of interest here, but this gives you a sense for where we're at. Before I go to the last slide, I will say this, that partnership is really important, and a couple of you have joked around about the Michigan thing. The town of Plattsburgh is excited to be the home of the Michigan, and there has been some unbelievable interest. Yeah, I write these jokes myself, folks. And we had a number of stories written about Michigans in the state of Michigan this year. We made it into Food and Wine this year. There was a gentleman from Hawaii that we reconnected with. This is culturally a really significant thing for us, and it's a lot of fun. So we decided that we're going to move forward with a Michigan Festival next year. We had some great conversations, and we're having it hosted at 1619. And it's going to do two things for us. It's going to allow us to have the Michigan Fest, but it's also going to allow us to do some fundraising for the Battlefield Memorial Gateway. So an example is we're going to have a cornhole tournament. Proceeds for the cornhole tournament will then go to support the BMG. So we believe in multiple layers of building community, celebrating community, and moving our community forward. Now, I will always take donations. Love to see donations move forward to this project. Never want to poo-poo anything, but we also recognize there's a big price tag to this. So we have also developed, as part of the committee structure, an opportunity for kind of that executive level of involvement, or if someone wanted to make a significant donation here in the community that they're very passionate about, or they know somebody that was in the armed services and they want to, there's lots and lots of opportunities. So we're developing some more material. There will be some sponsorship levels. Just to let you know, Schluter Systems is already at the table with us, and TD Bank is already at the table with us. The reason I bring that to your attention again is this is a real project. This is moving forward. If there's anything that I want people to walk away from this presentation tonight, not only knowing about the arc of the story and where we're going, is it's taking time, but time is a good thing because it's making sure that we're doing it right as we do it. We're not beholden to just kind of, let's just slap something in there and then it will be like everything else. All right? So that's my presentation. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. I apologize if I went too long. Yeah?
Just wondering about parking. Not everybody's going to be able to bike in or walk in.
That's correct. So it's not meant to have hundreds of people there at a time by one mode of transportation. There will be opportunities to walk, opportunities to bike. There will be some parking there on site. So there will be multiple ways for people to get to the location and participate in that. So again, as we continue to nurture the project, When we get on the opposite side of the train tracks, depending on what the safety and opportunities are, we may be able to even expand parking more. There are other properties in the region too that are close by that people could certainly take advantage of.
Michael, do you know anything about the history of the jetties? I know they were there for offloading fuel for the airbase.
Yep.
But I've never understood why there are two, and when one is angled perpendicular and the other one at a diagonal kind of northwest, southeast to the lake.
I personally couldn't share, I wouldn't feel comfortable trying to be a historian on those particular items.
Yeah.
You know, we are collecting some information, and part of what we're hoping to do is, again, to be able to talk about the property's connection with the Air Force Base and some of those things. Even some of the material that we've chosen to use when we get it built, some of the items will feel much more naturalized. Some of it will have kind of a Cold War era feel to it, because we want people to understand kind of that direct connection to some things.
There's a lot of printed literature
Oh yeah, there
on
is.
the War of 1812,
Absolutely.
the Battle of Plattsburgh,
Yep, absolutely.
and the same for the Battle of Belcourt,
Yep,
but not very much about,
yep,
there's some, of course, about the old base,
yep.
but there's not very much about the Plattsburgh Air Force Base
Yep.
and how it operated.
And
Most of
again,
us who were never in the Air Force
Sure.
have no clue,
yeah.
but it would be interesting to know.
It would be, and again, what we're also hoping too is that this gateway may inspire, I'm not trying to put it on the shoulders of CCHA, but as an example, because they've done some wonderful exhibits before and continue to do that. There may be opportunities from some of the other partners around the region that say, hey, now that they've gone to this property, we want to take it upon ourselves to tell a story. You know, I could see, as an example, a permanent exhibit over at the Plattsburgh International Airport. If anybody has ever been in the lobby of the Plattsburgh International Airport, there is a beautiful piece of artwork that's the tiles. It's spectacular. I highly encourage you to go in, because you don't have to get on a plane to see it. But there could be those things that encourage people to go around the region, and they don't have to be a 3-hour kind of adventure, but to go and say, oh, that's how this flight line is connected to here, because that's how the fuel came up and stuff. Yeah. Other questions? Sure.
Just possibly contact Canadian Pacific, see if they'd be interested in partaking in the project.
Yep.
And that's going to cross their properties, but
Yep.
they're a big entity, and there could be some funding there.
Oh, we're definitely in conversation with them, you know, about the crossing, as well as New York State DOT, and we're having a lot of those conversations. Things have been very healthy, and we know, you know, these things take time. COVID slowed some areas of this project down, you know, as far as getting kind of shovels in the ground in some way, but it also gave us the allowance to partner with some people that we may not have been able to, you know, from the perspective of getting some additional materials, which was really hopeful. So not a wash, just you know, recalibrated in a different way.
And another thing is Gary Douglas, when they promote our area, and they give these large tax incentive breaks to these corporations, to impress upon them that these large breaks are also an incentive for you to pay back the community for being here. And by that way, we would ask that you would help in these situations of entities like this. You know, they're here, they're on our properties, they're giving us jobs, but they're getting a large tax break.
What I will say, and there's a lot to unpack there, and we can certainly have more conversations, but what I can tell you is the individuals that we've talked to, and I'll use Schluter as an example, it's been phenomenal. You know, we continue to develop and to share what we're working on, and you know, again, this property, we're being very cautious too that we don't want placards everywhere, right? I've been to parks around the country where every tree, right, has, and and sometimes that works, and it can be done really, really well. So I don't want to make it seem like that every time that that's been done, that's a bad thing. Certainly not. But there's other times where you can miss the message of what we're doing. So we're really trying to make sure that it matches very well. But point well taken, though. Yeah. Yeah. Questions? Sure.
Do I dare ask if the city has any input or money as a city resident? You know, we all sink or swim together, so I would think the city would be
So this is.
interested in ponying up something to this.
Yeah, so this is a town of Plattsburgh project. You know, certainly, again, we're going to make sure that we find opportunities for those points of connection with, like I said, the Terry Gordon Bike Path, even the Empire State Trail is going to. But we recognize that every municipality has a responsibility to do project management. And this is a partnership between the American Legion and the town of Plattsburgh. And this is, I'm always very cautious about saying this because sometimes people interpret it differently. This is a very unique project, and it's very hard to manage it already with a lot of the cooks in the kitchen. It's not to say that we don't appreciate the city. We do. We're finding those ways to wet it in an appropriate factor. We just don't, we're not looking for financial points of connection as one example because it would muddy the water very, very hard. In fact, the fundraising arm, if I didn't say this before and I apologize, is actually predominantly driven by the American Legion. The public-private partnership, because you can do things differently with private dollars than you can with government dollars and vice versa. So we tend to be the grant side of the house, the town of Plattsburgh, and then the private dollars that are coming in are really coming in through the American Legion part of it, and that's working really well. Yeah.
So you don't really want you have the National Park Service, because I know when they have the Heritage Corridor locks, some people got very upset that the government's going to come in or even that around that park at one point they wanted to.
Yeah. So you know, again, what we do is we're very purposeful in the way that we partner with people, and there's partnership can look in different ways. Promotion is a partnership, right? I mean, that truly is. Hey, go and check out this thing, or find ways to put things on websites. Christy Kennedy, for example, just going back to the chamber, the Adirondack Visitors Bureau, been phenomenal. She has been at many of our meetings, understanding this. I'm confident that when we're fully up and running, it will find its way on the Adirondack Coast Visitors Bureau. So if you're coming from out of the region, or if you're here in the backyard, you'll know that this is a point of entry to explore, and very similar to some other stuff. So yeah.
Partnering with the city for security would make some sense. The history of vandalism in parks during off hours is pretty bad.
Yep.
And you've got a very open space there, right on the highway.
Yep.
Security is going to be an ongoing issue forever.
Yep. No, I would agree, and I'll go back to the fact that you can be in some of the most highly visible locations with cameras everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
Right? And people that want to do bad are going to do bad.
Yeah.
But we also know that the way that we're designing this is through the partnership of our American Legion, that it will be visited on a regular basis, where the more people are present and the more that you see things. I mean, let me tell you, if graffiti occurs in this park, it's going to be like, remember how New York City had that, kind of broken window theory? You clean it immediately, like you don't allow for it to happen. You set that standard. We will be doing the same thing there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
I think, my personal opinion is that anything that the town of Plattsburgh or the city of Plattsburgh or any other town in the county or the county does is good for the whole. It's, what the town is doing is going to bring in different interests that the town of Peru will benefit from. And maybe the town of Moores, I mean, who knows? And what the city is doing also benefits the town, because you have all the rooms
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
people stay
Yeah.
and stuff. So I think as the whole county, no matter the little pieces, benefit everybody. And Helen can speak to this much better than I can, because she works with our interns, but we have an intern right now, and his project is identifying the Revolutionary War veterans and their burial places in Clinton County. So that's another little piece for this America 250. And I just think that it's everybody working together benefits, the little pieces benefit the whole.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a cross-pollination.
Have you asked the railroad to move?
That I have not done.
Get the train away from the lake?
What, you don't make miracles?
I don't make miracles.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, folks.
That brought up the hair on the back of my head.
And that's why, you know, it's part of our story.
It's great.
John will tell you too, I was around him and he said that, when they were doing that there was no wind
Yeah.
on that day. And when they were raising that flag on that island, the breeze came and the flag flew. The stripes were flying.
And the funny part about that was they put the British flag underneath it as a point of honor, because they had a single line, but just to be respectful in that particular case,
Went out.
the American flag, and the British flag. So,
That's
Thank
it.
thank you, appreciate it.
I got one more question. Is
Yeah.
the Wienermobile coming for the Michigan thing?
Is the Wienermobile?
Yeah.
Uh,